Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge. We've got a great show for you lined up today. We're going to be talking MLB playoffs, but of course, we're going to be leaning hard into Thursday night football. So if you're in the chat already, if you have questions about Thursday night football or the Major League Baseball playoffs, put them in the chat because we are going to answer them, whether they're game or prop related. We've got your back. But yesterday, we didn't have your back so much. We've had a lot of winning recap screens, but ladies and gentlemen, this is not one of them. I lose my plus 140 golf, a 3-ball, but overall, this is just not a good recap screen. 2-7 overall. A-Mags hits one of his at plus money, and of course, Micah Roberts hit his Mariners Tigers over 8.5. But ladies and gentlemen, clearly not a great recap screen. Good news is we've had some good ones over the last couple of weeks, but let's improve. It's now or never with this team for Thursday night at MLB Playoffs. We got Matt Snyder, we got Mike McClure, we've got Larry Hartstein, and we've got Alex Selznick, a.k.a. PropStarz. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Let's just talk about your reaction to the MLB playoffs yesterday before we get into football.
Yeah, first of all, I need to do a better job at picking my spots here because I talked about how much I loved the Aaron Nola under 8.5 outs recorded, and that one hit, and I didn't play it right after I added the Julio Rodriguez play the day before, and that didn't hit. I thought it was a really, really fun day of action. I mean, we had 3 of the 4 series extend because we could have had all 4 series in yesterday, but 3 of the teams stayed alive. Some really good games, nail biter and Wrigley. The Phillies bats woke up in Dodger Stadium, leading into what is a very interesting game 4 and a very interesting game 5 in Seattle. So looking forward to what we've got the rest of the divisional series.
Alex, it's your Philadelphia Eagles that host. I shouldn't say host. The Giants are hosting the Eagles tonight. How you feeling about this Eagles team? The record says they're great, but the sentiment from really everybody says that they're not so great. Is it somewhere in the middle, PropStarz?
It usually is. Sia. Good morning, everybody. And I would say you're still 4-1. I know it hasn't particularly looked good, but yeah, I still think this Eagles team is rich with talent. They're in the NFC, where there's just not a lot of top end teams, in my opinion. So I just think it's all about how you finish, not necessarily about the start. There was a lot of chatter like this during the Eagles Super Bowl run last year when they didn't get off to a great start either. So I just think they still have a lot of talent. They're relatively healthy. They've been playing good football outside of one half. So I certainly think there's still a lot to be encouraged by. I think they get the win tonight as well.
Mike, I'm wearing the Eagles colors. You're wearing the Giants colors. Does that mean you're tipping your hand a little bit? Are you leaning Giants today? Delay on Mike, I assume. Larry, how about you? I know you don't have a game total, a spread pick necessarily, but 7.5. Any response to that line? Because it's in division, it's a short week. It does feel like a lot of points.
Yeah, I take issue with a lot of the things that Alex says. As much as I respect him, there's a lot of cause for concern with that Eagles offensive line without Landon Dickerson. Saquon Barkley doesn't have an explosive rush yet. He's getting hit half a yard after the line, whereas last year it was like 2 yards, before anybody was even near him. They have 1.5 sacks from their edge rushers combined total. Zadarius Smith, Nolan Smith is on IR. There's a lot of reasons for concern. Not saying the Giants are going to upset them, but I think there is cause. I think they are a notch below what they were. They haven't scored in the fourth quarter in the last 2 games. I could go on and on, but I think real concerns in Philly.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of plays we have. We're going to answer a lot of your questions. Mike, you're back. I think you should kick things off with your pick. Honestly, I probably could have predicted this. Talk to me about a first half team total.
Yeah, they keep offering it, Sia. 12.5 currently still at one sportsbook. I would play this one at 13.5, though, admittedly. It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles team total over. I expect a complete rout tonight in this game from the Philadelphia Eagles. I like them minus 7.5, like alts on it up to 10.5. When I look at this particular matchup, though, I think their defense can create some offense in some short fields, particularly early here. I think they come out and kind of get right, so to speak, in the spot. Look, you talk about the sentiment. Proppy says, they're basically somewhere in the middle of being great and not as bad as, the sentiment truly is. I am definitely in that camp. I think this is a spot where they kind of maybe get A.J. Brown right and get that passing game right a little bit. I think you see a very aggressive approach offensively from the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. So I like this particular play a lot. Once again, touchdown and 2 field goals, all you need. I think we get an opening drive touchdown from them in this game. But again, there are 13.5s available at plus 104, plus 105 in the market. I like those as well. Less concerned about 13 as the key number tonight as I am in most of these situations. So give me touchdown and 2 field goals or 2 touchdowns here in the first half for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. We like the Eagles in a rout, says Mike McClure. Proppy, I know you don't have an official pick on this game. You have a prop you're about to give out for Sunday. Talk to me about the sentiment that Mike just delivered on.
Yeah, as far as the Eagles are concerned, again, I really think if we look at the team, Jalen Hurts is actually playing well. Who isn't playing well is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They have not been very efficient this season. I don't think that's going to be the case as the season progresses. I think A.J. Brown is still an elite wide receiver. Devontae Smith, certainly a very good wide receiver. So I think a lot of the issues the Eagles have had are certainly fixable, and the Giants' defense provides an opportunity to get those back on track. So Jalen Hurts is playing very good football here. And again, I think that Saquon Barkley, with the offensive line woes that they've had, again, this is a matchup where the Eagles can be successful running the football. So, I like where Mike's going with this. I think they're going to be aggressive out the gate. And I think, that's a good look for sure.
All right. Well, we've got a lot more of a Thursday night football to get to, a lot more picks. Proppy, I do want to go to you next because this is a bit of a preview for the prop show tomorrow at 1:00 on CBS Sports Network. You're going to give out a prop. Before you give that out, though, Lydia in the chat, he says, I want to be like Mike. And I want to ask a question, not to you all. It's really to the chat. So many of you watching, hit the like button if you could. Is there a better commercial jingle than the Like Mike? I mean, it's dated. You have to be a certain age to know this jingle. But if there's a better commercial jingle, I want you to put it in the chat, because anytime somebody brings up the Like Mike Gatorade commercial, I'm just all in. It's fixated in my head. So put in the chat if there's a better commercial jingle than the I want to be like Mike one that Gatorade, not a sponsor. But it's good nonetheless. Anyway, let's get to Alex. Let's get to Darren Waller. Talk to me about maybe an inflated line.
Indeed, Sia. Yeah, I think this is a natural spot to fade Darren Waller. Coming off of a hyper-efficient performance last week, 5 receptions, 5 targets, 78 yards, and a touchdown for Waller. I'm going to go under 39.5 receiving yards this week against the Chargers. That came against the Carolina Panthers last week. And that was despite Waller being on a pitch count. Now he's maybe banged up. He's going to be on a pitch count again this week, and he's facing a much more formidable defense in the Chargers, who are 8th in EPA allowed per dropback, 2nd in success rate as far as the pass defense is concerned. So a much more difficult opponent. The Chargers have allowed the 3rd fewest yards to opposing tight ends, 2nd fewest yards on a per game basis to the position this season. So I just think it's a good natural spot to fade Waller coming off of the big performance last week. I think this will ultimately go down as his best game of the season. So it's a good spot to catch what is likely an inflated line, in my opinion.
All right. Darren Waller under 39.5 receiving yards certainly seems like an inflated line. Speaking of catching things, how about catching a couple of BetMGM promos before we get to more picks? Get a second chance tonight, folks. You can get your bet back in cash if your first touchdown scores second instead. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores the second touchdown, you get your stake back in cash. Next, we're going to the NHL. BetMGM players will also receive an NHL odds boost. Just make an NHL bet to activate the boost, and if you win, you'll receive extra winnings and unrestricted bonus dollars. I'm sure we'll have some NHL picks up on the SportsLine site. And speaking of SportsLine picks, let's get to a couple of them before we get to more of picks from the Sniper and Larry and myself. Saquon Barkley over 17.5 yards, longest rush, minus 112. That's Danny Brasco's pick. And then Wan'Dale Robinson under 17.5 longest reception, minus 112. We'll have a little bit more to say about these receivers, but Larry, pipe in.
Well, Danny is all over Saquon Barkley in this matchup. If you've been on the site, you've seen that he likes him for an anytime. He likes him for 2 touchdowns. Saquon had 6 carries last week, which is something that's never happened to him in his career. And the Giants, yes, they have been terrible against the run, but we'll see if this Eagles O-line can create some space. And if it's a typical Saquon game against the Giants, he destroyed them last year in the one meeting that he had. But I'm a little worried about the Eagles O-line, but it is striking that Saquon, I think 16 is his longest rush of the season.
Yeah, I like this bet a lot. And Danny Brasco's in the chat. He also said he put in Hurts' longest completion over 33.5 on the SportsLine site. So we like Barkley longest rush, and we like Jalen Hurts' longest completion. We're going to talk about A.J. Brown later in the show, Larry. I know you have a play on him. I think that longest completion, even though Devontae Smith had a great game last week, I think that was more circumstantial than anything. I could see A.J. Brown ripping off a long reception in this one. Of course, that's a little bit contingent on how much the Eagles have to actually pass the ball. But I like both looks by Danny Brasco. More looks to come, including a little bit of MLB playoffs. That's coming up right after this message from our partners.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Be legendary. All right, let's get to some MLB playoffs, Larry, before we get to your picks and before we get to my first half pick as well. Sniper, we got 2 games tonight, right? And you've got 2 picks.
Yes, with apologies to my friend Liddy in the chat, I am going to fade the Dodgers here. I'm going to go with the underdog Phillies, plus 110. I found it right before the show. Christopher Sanchez on the hill for the Phillies. He went in game 1. The Phillies lefties have looked really good 2 times through the order in this series, with Christopher Sanchez in game 1, Jesus Luzardo in game 2, Ranger Suarez last night. Other than that leadoff home run to Tommy Edman, he was great. And then because of that 8th inning explosion by the Phillies offense, they did not have to throw Duran. They did not have to throw Strom at all. I think maybe you get Christopher Sanchez for 6 innings, maybe 5 and bridge the gap, and then you have Strom for 1. I think Duran's going to go 2 innings in this one as long as it's close. And the Phillies power lefties against Tyler Glasnow. I like the matchup. They already got a quick look at him in game 1 of that series. Glasnow in relief. He did not throw great. The Dodgers bullpen is really, really tough to trust right now. And if you want to look at individual props, of course, you have to like my guy, Kyle Schwarber. I'm wearing the IU sweatshirt in honor of Schwarber and IU playing at Oregon on Saturday. Also, I'm going to play something from Friday. I'm going to go with the Mariners. I'm very well aware that Tarek Skubal is pitching for the Tigers, and that's why the Tigers are favored. But remember, in game 2, the Mariners won the game that Skubal started. Even though Skubal pitched really well, he only gave up 2 solo home runs to Jorge Polanco. It's going to be very low scoring. I just feel like the Mariners are the better team, and they are going to find a way at home to advance. So I've got that one. I know the other game today is the Cubs, Brewers. Neither team has yet announced the starting pitchers. I expect it to be Freddie Peralta and Matthew Boyd, just like game 1. That is an advantage for the Brewers there, but we don't have a full complement of all the props just yet. I did glance at hits, runs, RBI on Michael Busch because it feels really, really good right now. 2+ was at plus money on DraftKings on Busch, so you can take a look at that. But as I said, we don't yet know the starting pitchers, but I would lean toward the Brewers on that one. So my official plays are Phillies today, money line, Mariners tomorrow, money line, both underdogs.
All right. We got 2 dogs. I agree with, I like this Mariners one quite a bit. I feel like that would be the one I'd prefer. It's so hard for me, Sniper, to fade the Dodgers coming off a loss, but that's why you're getting the plus money.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's still the Dodgers. They're still in the driver's seat to win the series. They're still very likely to win the series. Just kind of had a good feeling about the Phillies lefties and the fact that they didn't have to throw Duran last night.
I love it. All right. I'm going to go to my pick, and then Larry, we're going to get to your picks, and then we're going to get to the questions in the chat. I'm going with the first half under 20.5. Now, I just want to point out that on the SportsLine site, this should look like 20.5, but I did see something sort of glitchy happen when I put it in originally. It read as under 20. This bet is very much first half under 20.5. That's where it's being offered at all books, so that's where you'll get it as well. I like this. I mean, let's be honest. Neither of these teams are very explosive offensively. We know the Giants are probably going to try to establish the run. They're down, obviously, Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors. You're going to see Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe some Theo Johnson in the short area. I don't think we're going to see many explosive plays to the likes of like Jalen Hyatt. They're going to try to establish the run at home on a short week. On the other side of the ball, I do think, to Danny Brasco's pick, I do think Saquon Barkley is going to get it going, but I think this goes through Saquon Barkley. I'm not worried about his knee soreness. And while I do think Jalen Hurts takes some shots down the field, I don't think it's enough shots where we're going to see 17, 20 points from the Eagles in the first half. I could very well see this being a 13-6 game, something like that in the first half from the Eagles. This is a bit in contrast to Mike's pick in the sense that if the Eagles really go off in the first half, my play probably doesn't hit. But I think 20.5 for these two teams, for this division game, for what is likely to be conservative game plans for the most part on both sides of the ball, especially in a more neutral game script in the first half. In the second half, teams tend to open it up if they're down 7, 10 points, and then you get turnovers, potentially long plays down the field. But I like this under 20.5 first half, Eagles, Giants. All right, let's transition. I mentioned Theo Johnson. I mentioned A.J. Brown. Larry, you happen to have 2 picks on each of these guys.
Yeah, I'm just going to get A.J. Brown out of the way. I don't like watching him play. I don't like his antics. I don't like a guy who quits on a route that could have been a touchdown and doesn't take accountability for it afterwards, just kind of says, we missed on that one. Well, if you kept running, it could have been a touchdown. I don't like any of that. You won a Super Bowl. You are on an undefeated team and you're so unhappy. You're so miserable. But that is all irrelevant when you get to this matchup tonight. As Danny Brasco pointed out in the chat, the Giants play a ton of man coverage and A.J. Brown destroys man coverage. He destroyed the Giants last year, 5 catches on 5 targets. They didn't need any more. It was a 28-3 blowout. But this number is a little bit low. Given all the squawking, given he's had 8 targets in 4 straight games, 8 or more targets against this secondary, very beatable for the man coverage. I think they're going to try to make him happy. I think he needs to show effort tonight after all the criticism, the justified criticism he's taken for not producing with all the targets he had last week and quitting on that route. I think he will come out and play a strong game. So as distasteful as it is, I took A.J. Brown over 4.5 catches. And on the other side, Theo Johnson has 12 targets with Jackson Dart as quarterback. That's tied for the lead on the team with Wan'Dale Robinson. No Malik Neighbors, no Darius Slayton. There was a story where Theo Johnson said that Jackson Dart texted him right after getting drafted and said, we're going to build this thing together. They have great chemistry. He's 6'6", 265 pounds. They don't have a lot of other guys to throw to. I mean, Jalen Hyatt is a total draft bust. Maybe he gets one deep ball, but Theo Johnson over 28.5 receiving yards is a really good look because the Eagles should be playing for the lead. Jackson Dart is going to look for his big man over the middle. So those are my 2 props for tonight.
All right. You mentioned Jalen Hyatt. Can I just tell you, because people are going to ask me on Twitter, hey, what about a negative correlation play? Mike, you and I have talked about this a lot. Jalen Hyatt, unfortunately, his receptions prop is 1.5, and his receiving prop has escalated a little bit from 15, 16.5 to 17, 18.5. I actually like Jalen Hyatt's over just because he's going to be on the field. Just process of elimination. I think he's going to get some targets and actually be efficient enough. But if you want to do the negative correlation, I've already done it. You do the 40+ yards, which is obviously you're doing an alt line, 40+ yards. You're doing the under 1.5 receptions, which, let's be honest, is really dicey. When we hit the QJ1, it was 2.5 receptions. That is a major, major difference because we're really leaning on Jalen Hyatt catching 1 ball. You throw in the anytime touchdown on the 40+ and under 1.5 receptions, and it's 110-1. So really what you're praying for here is 1 deep shot to Jalen Hyatt, which he catches because he's wide open, which is going to be the Jalen Hyatt experience for his entire career because he's not going to be a contested catch guy. He's in the end zone, and that's basically his day. I think it's possible. You want to put $1 on it to win 110. Let's have some fun. Let's get to some questions. Josh Davis says, Cam Scatabo over 2.5 receptions at plus 115. Proppy, you know I'm going to you on this one. What do you have to say about these running back receptions?
I don't love them mostly because running backs are not going to be a first read for a quarterback. They're typically, when they're getting involved in the passing game, it's as a check down, and it's very game script dependent. That being said, Cam Scatabo is an impressive wide receiver, an impressive dual threat running back. I do think he's going to be the focal point of the Giants' offensive game plan. The Eagles' run defense has been vulnerable. I think the Giants can have success running the football against the Eagles. And in the event that they're trailing, I would imagine that Scatterbo would be involved. I personally prefer to take his combination line versus his reception line. But yeah, I do think the usage tonight. Tyrone Tracy will be playing as well, but I think Scatterbo's the better option, the more versatile option. But the coaching staff has seemed to really like Tyrone Tracy as well. So personally, it's something I'm staying away from. But I do think Scatterbo, if he gets the usage, will be successful against the Eagles.
Larry, there's a couple unknowns here. I don't know that we know whether Jalen Carter is playing in this game yet. And I do think we do know how much like that Tyrone Tracy is playing, but we don't know how much he is playing. When people are looking at Scatterbo props or Tyrone Tracy, does this feel like kind of a stay away, or maybe that Tyrone Tracy's line is too low because of the perception here and that you want to take his over? I feel like this is something where there's too many unknowns.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Carter is massive, physically, literally, and figuratively for that defense. So that's one status I would like to know before betting on rushing yards. But I do think Proppy, every time I go to place a running back receptions prop, I hear you in my head saying, be careful, and then I pause. But Scatterbo, I mean, the targets were off the charts last week. If you get a negative game script, 2.5 does seem pretty low there.
Go ahead, Proppy.
I would add, though, with Jackson Dart, because he's able to scramble in a lot of scenarios where a more traditional pocket passer would check down to a running back, he's going to look to take off. So he's not necessarily the type of quarterback that's going to check down a ton. So I would offer that as far as the utilization of Scatterbo in the receiving game. He did obviously have production last week, but yeah, I just definitely think there's a lot of unknowns here.
Proppy, this is a question from Mark Thomas, because you just mentioned Jackson Dart and running the ball. I don't know what his rushing attempt line is. Is it 7.5? Mark is telling us 7. I know his rushing line, the actual rushing yards, is around 36, 37. Any thoughts on Dart taking off here and actually exceeding this line?
I think he has a good chance to eclipse this line against the Eagles in a trailing game script, which is likely to be the case here. I think in a scenario, if the Eagles get up by double digits and start to relax a little bit defensively, we'll see him take what he can get and be more aggressive, looking to run. But yeah, I think the line ultimately is pretty efficient, and I just don't like to bank on just simply game script. But considering the rushing attempts line is 7.5, I do lean over on this line.
All right. So George Wilson says Eagles money line, and then he has a slash. I think he's trying to ask, well, what do I parlay with Eagles money line? I can tell you from the network show that we did on Monday, I think Danny Brasco mentioned a Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown. If you do Eagles money line with Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown, that's like minus 105, or it's close to even money. Mike, I don't love betting on the variance of anytime touchdowns, but in Saquon Barkley's case, part of me is like, I do think he scores, but then you got the Jalen Hurts problem there. How do you feel about just the anytime touchdown market with either Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley?
In this particular spot, especially with Saquon, you're definitely not getting value on it. It's certainly going to be one of the most inflated lines, in the NFL all season. When it comes to a narrative game like this against a former team. Having said that, do I think they feed him and get him a touchdown? Probably. Just not something I'm willing to bet. It's just negative value.
All right. Sniper, let's go to baseball real quick, and then we'll circle back to football. Phillies over 3.5 team total. Any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I'm going to play that money line, they're going to have to score more than three runs. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go with that as a correlated play. Absolutely.
Larry, you've come to this show for a couple of years now with defensive props here and there. So I'm not surprised that we've got Michael Heimseth in the chat saying any defensive props we like tonight.
I was looking at Paulson Adebo over 5.5 tackles and assists. He has showed out so far. He doesn't always play outside. He will play in the box. He'll play in the slot sometimes. But I was looking for lower juice right now that I can find. So I'm going to stay away in the minus 150 range. But if I can find, minus 130, then I would look at that. Still diving in, though. Those are always fun.
Mike, Aaron Bailey wants to know Eagles first half -4.5. Any thoughts there?
I don't hate it. I don't mind it. I prefer full game when you're talking north of 4. If it was 3.5, different story. I'd be more interested in backing them -0.5 in the first quarter than I would at 4.5. Don't mind it, though. I think they do ultimately run away with the game.
All right, Jeff Stenberg says, Larry, is the best bet on the board Daniel Bellinger, 4+ receptions at +600. Dart loves chucking it to tight ends, and Bellinger had 4 last week. I think this is a good transition point, Larry, because I do think Bellinger could, we know the big tight ends, not just Theo Johnson. Bellinger might get some looks too. This is a good time for our first touchdown scores, and we'll circle back to see if you have any last-minute questions here. My first touchdown score is, in fact, Theo Johnson. Larry, I know you liked that one as well. I just like the number on Theo Johnson. I got to be honest, I don't necessarily expect the Giants to score first. But when I'm looking at 20-1 and I'm looking at a nice big target, I'm looking at the idea that maybe the Giants have some first and second quarter momentum and that fades and they end up losing in the third and fourth quarter, kind of like they did against the Saints last week. I could see them theoretically putting up the first touchdown. I could see Theo Johnson catching it. So that's my play. Larry, you had to pivot because I submitted Theo Johnson. You could have done the same guy, by the way. We see Mike and Proppy on the same guy. I know you don't like this guy, but 10-1, the favored team, a good target. He's going to be able to box out his defender like he always does. Jalen's going to want to make him happy. Talk to me.
I think you just made the exact case, Sia, for that. I do like Theo Johnson, but yeah, Daniel Bellinger does worry me tonight that he's going to steal some looks from Theo. They're going to play a lot of 2 tight end set. They're so down at receiver that's almost a necessity for them. But yeah, A.J. Brown is such a big target. Make him happy, get everybody on the same page again. And it's definitely a narrative play. You don't usually see him this high.
All right, let's go to Mike McClure. Mike, talk to me about a guy who I believe had 10 targets last week and caught 8 of them.
Yeah, give me Devontae Smith, 11-1. I think a lot of attention goes to Saquon. Sorry, we got some noise here. And then after Saquon, it's A.J. Brown and the narrative of kind of feeding the squeaky wheel. So Devontae's the guy that I want to look for over the middle of the field. 11-1 here, like Devontae.
Sniper, this might be one of my favorite ones on the board here. Talk
Yeah,
to me about
man.
Dallas Goedert.
Dallas Goedert, 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, including at Tampa Bay. Were those both shovel passes? There were 2 really close. I think they were both shovel passes. Nice to have that short yardage option there, other than the tush push, which of course they would still do inside the 1 yard line. But if it's at the 2, they've got to watch out for Saquon. You got to watch out for any kind of tomfoolery there with Goddard. So I liked Goddard.
All right. Drew Martin wants to know, Proppy, any player prop leans for tonight, whether it's an over or an under, anybody that you've kind of isolated and said, hey, I think this guy might enjoy a good game or a bad game tonight?
I honestly I think fading Saquon is a pretty sharp look right now, considering how the offensive line has looked. The Eagles' game plan might be just not running anywhere nearly as well as he was running last season. It's tough to say why. I think the offensive line has certainly contributed, but if we look at his advanced metrics, they're basically split in half compared to a lot of the things we saw last year, whether he's tired or tough to really say what's going on, but I don't have a lot of confidence of him in as high as a number around 78 to 80.5. So I would actually lean on fading Saquon if I did have a lean on anything.
Larry, speaking of rushing yards, there was somebody in the chat that asked about Jalen Hurts, 39.5 rushing yards. Not something I'm really dipping my toe in, but any thoughts on Jalen Hurts, whether it's in the passing game or the rushing game?
I don't have a play on it. I will say the Giants do play a lot of man coverage, which can help when you're trying to run the ball, but no play for me.
Okay. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not playing it, first of all. Which saying that I'm not playing the under should be a pretty strong statement on, the upside that he's got. If you're pro Jalen Hurts running in this matchup because of the way the Giants defend, for me, I would much rather just attack the longest rush at 12.5 or 13.5. I think he gets one decent run, 17, 18, 19 yards. That's how I personally would attack it.
All right. Sniper, were there any baseball questions that I missed in the chat?
There was one in particular I wanted to touch on. Somebody asked about, since I said it was going to be low scoring in the Mariners Tigers game tomorrow night, what about the under? The total's 5.5. That is such a low total to try to play. I could totally see it being 2-2 and going to extra innings and, thinking you're in good shape when it's 2-2 and then having it blown up in extra innings once they get into the bullpen and past some of the best bullpen arms. So I'm avoiding that one. I do think it's going to be low scoring, but I'm not going under 5.5. I'm just not.
All right.
Also, a few hits, runs, RBIs questions. Kyle Schwarber was asked. Yeah, absolutely. It's Kyle Schwarber in the playoffs. Got to love the over on that one. Go yard again. Why not? Third most prolific home run hitter in postseason history with 23. Manny Ramirez is the leader with 29, Jose Altuve with 27. But if you look at their plate appearances, Schwarber has so many less than everybody. On a per plate appearance basis, out of guys who have any kind of volume, Schwarber is the best home run hitter in postseason history.
Love that. Love that stat right there. I missed, there's probably a lot of people, speaking of good or not good players in the MLB playoffs, a lot of people stomping on the Yankees grave. I know that was probably early in the chat. Sniper, before we get out of here, any response to the Yankees being dispatched?
Fine with it. I like turnover. They were in the World Series last year, so it's cool. I think Blue Jays against either Tigers or Mariners for me is really fun because that's a fresh matchup. I'd like to see Mariners there, but Tigers okay too. But Mariners Blue Jays I think would be very, very fun. Both really good teams, both built for the postseason. Blue Jays offense is amazing. Mariners pitch well generally. Should be really fun.
Larry.
Jeff asked if I can smell the sadness here in the New York area, and I can. And I also hear the grumbling. I hear people saying stuff like, if Aaron Judge can't win a World Series, can't get them over the hump, he's not a Hall of Famer, which I think is kind of ludicrous to put it all on Aaron Judge. But yeah, a lot of unhappy people in my neighborhood.
If you have to win a World Series in order to make the Hall of Fame, we're going to have to kick out more than half of the Hall of Famers right now. There's bad news for people named like Ted Williams. Uh-oh, Ted, you got to go, man. Sorry.
Baseball is not one of those sports where you lean on one player to win.
Yeah, I always say to people, it's not basketball. You can't have one guy just dominate the entire game. You bat once every 9 times. You have to have somebody else pitch. Like, there's only so much one dude can do.
Before we get to the recap screen, let me do one more question from Keaton Daniels. Really cool name. Eagles first quarter over 3.5 team total. Mike, I'm going to you on that one.
I lean over, certainly. Yeah, I would say if you're going to play that, I would also, depending on where the juice is on it, I would consider laying the 0.5 point with the Eagles in the first quarter as well. But yeah, definitely not going under.
All right. Somebody in the chat said Cam Scatterbo is a crazy person. I totally agree. I mean, he's worth watching. Like if you're like, I'm not really into this game for some reason, which I don't think anybody is like that, but just watching Cam Scatterbo is just worth the price of admission, in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at the recap screen before we get out of here. I'm on Eagles Giants first half under 20.5 at -110. The Sniper, Phillies money line +110, and Mariners money line +118. Mike McClure, Eagles first half team total over 12.5 at -115. PropStarz, Darren Waller under 39.5 receiving yards -111. That's a prop play for Sunday. And don't forget the NFL Prop Show is tomorrow at 1 o'clock with Claudia Bellafato, myself, PropStarz, and of course, Dave Richard. Then we go back to Thursday Night Football with Larry Hartstein. A.J. Brown over 4.5 catches at -125. And Theo Johnson over 28.5 receiving yards at -111. I want to give a shout out before we get to the SportsLine picks to all of you in the chat that are putting in NHL picks. We had so many comments. I wasn't able to filter through all of them, but Duck Dad and so many of you, Scott Davis, I believe, and others putting in NHL picks. Always appreciate that. If you got a pick on any sport, I want you to put it in the chat, and hopefully those come in. Some of the people in the chat can tell you. Let's get to the SportsLine picks. We've got Saquon Barkley over 17.5 yards, longest rush -112 from Danny Brasco. But from Wednesday's show, he also has Barkley touchdown -165 and Barkley 2 touchdowns +360. Wan'Dale Robinson under 17.5 yards, longest reception under again. 17.5 yards, longest reception, -112. That one courtesy of Prop Bet Guy. And then we got our first touchdown scores. I'm going with Theo Johnson. Mike and PropStarz are going with Devonta Smith. Matt Snyper going with Dallas Goedert. And we've got A.J. Brown. I believe that's Larry Hartstein's favorite player. A.J. Brown is the first touchdown scorer at 10-1 from Larry Hartstein. A lot of activity in the chat. I do want to remind everybody, in your podcast feed on Fantasy Football Today DFS, and of course on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel, in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, you're going to see the FFT DFS show, which is going to set you up for the main slate on Sunday. We like to talk props on that show a little bit as well, so make sure you catch that show. Make sure you're subscribed to that Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast. I think that'll do it. You know, I don't know that any of you or anybody on the show noticed that there was a wardrobe change on this show. And I think that is very, very interesting. We got to be dialed in. We got to pay attention here, folks. Either way, it's been a great show. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll see you in the SportsLine Discord. Make sure you're signed up for that. All SportsLine members get that for free. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Sniper. Thank you, Mike McClure. I'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you, PropStarz. And, of course, thank you, Ben, on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. And thank you, Scott Davis, Jason Pogwist, Danny Brasco in the chat, sports fan, CLE fan, Katie Taylor, Richard Pierre, so many, Brad Morris, Just Marv, Grant Marshall. I wish I could say all the names. We appreciate you every single day. We'll see you next time. We rest our case.